Seen from Mr. Weir's class in Oregon to Mrs. Cheatham's class in Indiana, Mrs. Cooley's in Kentucky, Mr. Bo's in Minnesota, Coach Prince's in Arkansas, to Mr. Shimasaki's class in California. This is CNN Student News. We begin in Washington as President Obama lays out a game plan to beat the financial crisis. And he did so on a pretty big stage, his first address to Congress since he took office. President Obama touched on some international issues during last night's speech, but his main focus was on things here in the U.S., including, of course, the economy. Samantha Hayes fills us in on the details of the speech and the response to it.
The President of the United States.
In front of a joint session of Congress, President Barack Obama spoke to the American people, focusing on the economy.
You don't need to hear another list of statistics to know that our economy is in crisis, because you live it every day.
The president addressed the seriousness of mounting job losses and the housing meltdown, but tried to strike an optimistic tone.
Though we are living through difficult and uncertain times, tonight I want every American to know this. We will rebuild, we will recover, and the United States of America will emerge stronger than before.
The president also took the opportunity to promote his $787 billion stimulus program.
This plan will save or create 3.5 million jobs. More than 90% of these jobs will be in the private sector. Jobs rebuilding our roads and bridges, constructing wind turbines and solar panels, laying broadband, and expanding mass transit.
A rising Republican star, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal, delivered the GOP's response.
A few weeks ago, the president warned that our country is facing a crisis that he said, in quotes, we may not be able to reverse. You know, our troubles are real, to be sure, but don't let anyone tell you that we cannot recover.
The president also called upon Americans to pull together in order to confront boldly the challenges the country faces. For CNN Student News, I'm Samantha Hayes.
Time for the shout out. Which one of these is an Ivy League school? If you think you know it, shout it out. Is it Columbia, Brown, Cornell, or Dartmouth? You've got 3 seconds. Go! Trick question. All of these institutions are part of the Ivy League. That's your answer, and that's your shout-out.
Another thing those prestigious schools have in common, they're expensive. Tuition and fees at each of them topped $35,000 this year. With the struggling economy, some high school students, maybe even some of you, are adjusting expectations when it comes to post-graduation plans. Jason Carroll reports on how financial concerns are affecting one student's college choices.
As Mia Sarah Abdullah sits in class, she focuses not just on the lesson of the day, she also daydreams about her future.
I have a lot of goals, and they're all pretty intense, but I'm really set on making them happen.
One goal of this high school junior, get into a prestigious university, maybe even an Ivy League school. Mia says she has the grades, the drive. What her family no longer has is the money.
So I'm looking into state schools as opposed to big name universities that I was previously really obsessed with.
Mia's father passed away years ago, and just last year, her mother was laid off after working 22 years in the financial industry. She was torn on how to break the news to her daughter.
I couldn't tell her, how do you tell your child you can't, afford the college that she wants to attend?
Do you remember sort of what the feeling was? I mean, you're not going to have the exact words, but when your mom came to you and said, we're going to have to reevaluate this.
It was dream crushing, kind of. She didn't want to disappoint me, but, there's no way to not.
A national survey showed just over half the families polled are now considering limiting their child's college choices to less expensive schools like public colleges. The economic downturn means fewer families can count on equity in their homes as a way to offset tuition like they did just a few years ago. The other problem? Many parents are unsure about their future on the job, or like Anna Abdullah, are out of a job.
It's aggravating. 22 years of working, and you figure you're gonna, continue working, and then I don't know where to take it from there.
Mia does. She applied to a few New York State schools where tuition would be as little as a quarter, of what it would cost at Columbia University. But she still hopes with a job and some financial aid, her Ivy League dream can come true.
I believe that if you if you dream about it enough, you'll get in. So I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Another point about Mia Sara, she was diagnosed with leukemia some time ago and fought her way through that. She and her mother say if she can fight her way through that, they can find a way to beat their financial situation. Jason Carroll, CNN, New York.
See if you can ID me. I was born in Mexico in 1829. I'm a well-known Apache leader. I fought against Mexican and American settlers in North America. I'm Geronimo, and my Indian name means one who yawns.
He passed away 100 years ago this month, but Geronimo's actually in the middle of a battle taking place right now. His descendants are accusing one of the country's most well-known secret societies of stealing the famous warrior's skull, and they're fighting to get it back. Deborah Farrick explores the controversy surrounding Geronimo's remains.
Geronimo hanged for murder.
Just his name, Geronimo, conjures up images like these in an American legend. A fierce Apache leader and his warriors, greatly outnumbered, fighting off the U.S. cavalry in an attempt to save his people and their way of life.
And he's eventually surrounded and outmanned, outgunned. He is convinced to surrender.
Geronimo died a prisoner of war, his body buried in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Now, 100 years later, his family is suing to get his remains back.
After a while, you know, it hurts you inside.
Herlin Geronimo is the warrior's great-grandson. He and other descendants are suing Yale University and the secret society known as the Order of Skull and Bones, claiming Geronimo's skull was stolen back in 1918 by Yale students, members of the secret order. One of the alleged grave robbers, Yaley Prescott Bush, the father and grandfather of Presidents 41 and 43.
When you desecrate a grave like of this nature, you know, you upset the spirits. And sooner or later, you know, the spirits will come after you.
For decades, members called bonesmen dismissed the suggestion as a hoax. But a bonesman's letter written in 1918, discovered 2 years ago at Yale, suggests otherwise. Quote, "The skull of the worthy Geronimo the Terrible exhumed. Now, safe inside, the T. T is believed short for the tomb, the bonesman's private club."
I spoke with several bonesmen who told me that inside the tomb there is a glass display case containing a skull, and the bonesmen have always called it Geronimo.
Author Alexandra Robbins wrote a book on the secret order.
If it is found that Geronimo's skull is really in there, that's a crime.
Geronimo's descendants have also sued President Obama and Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, hoping to recover Geronimo's remains at Fort Sill.
He died as a prisoner of war. Still, he was not free, and he was not free to be buried in the old customary ways that the Apache would have been buried at that time.
So where exactly is Fort Sill located? How about Yale? Our downloadable maps can point you in the right direction, and you are going to find links to them in our daily email. It is also the place to learn about what we are covering on the show and find out about any special programming, like our upcoming coverage of Women's History Month. The email is chock full of resources, and you can sign up for it at cnnstudentnews.com. Well, before we go, some politicians who are real flip-floppers. Of course, that's what these guys are supposed to be doing, at least during the British Parliament's annual pancake race. The event cooks up competition between government officials and journalists, and yes, it looks like they're required to wear those really cool-looking hats and aprons. But the trickiest part is probably trying to hang on to those pancakes as you race around the course. Yet another reason why it's important to have a balanced breakfast. Man, that one's just painful. We're going to cook up another show for you tomorrow. Hope to see you then.